Is IXL for grade 6, and this is section G8, and I will say this is probably the skill you will use the most in your entire life. When you go out to eat at restaurants, when you go out shopping, this is the stuff you'll be doing all the time. So being able to do this quickly and accurately is very handy. So let's get to it. So in this case, we've got a 5% commission on an $87 railroad that she sold. So the question is, how much did she earn? So we're looking at what's 5% of 87. We have two ways to do this. We can say 87 times 5, or we know that 5% is half of 10%, and 10% is pretty straightforward to calculate. We just move the decimal over, so 10% would be $8.70. So we need half of that. So that's $4.35. So that's probably the faster way. But let's check by multiplying. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 8 is 40. So 5, 3, and 4. And sure enough, exactly the same. So 5%, 10%, even 15 or 20%. This is usually the best way to do it, is to use this idea of moving the decimal over. And sure enough, we've got $24 bill at a restaurant and a 20% tip. In this case, they want to know what was the amount of the tip. So we can use multiplication to say 24 times 2, which is 48, but we know it wasn't $48. We move our decimal point over and it was going to be $4.80. $4.80, because I know this is somewhere in the neighborhood of a fifth. It's exactly a fifth, or I know it's close to a fourth, which is a little easier to divide in here. So this becomes about $6. It's 1/4 of 24 is $6, so $4.80. We could have also said, well, wait a minute, 10% of 24 is 2.40, and we need 2 of those, 2.40, and when we add 240 and 240, we sure enough get 480. So with these percentages, there's usually a couple of different ways to solve them. Multiplying is always a good one, using our 10% rule and adding 10 or subtracting 10 or whatnot, multiplying by 10%. That's a pretty good way to do it as well. Let's look at a few more examples. Alright, so now we've got a $93 bill and an 18% tip. What's the total cost? So we need to find the tip plus the brunch. And we'll do sort of the regular way, finding the tip and adding, and I'll show you a little bit more an advanced way to do it. So in this case, we've got a 2-digit times a 2-digit, and I know it's about $100. This is about 18%, so it's going to be somewhere just under $18 for the tip. So let's go ahead and do the rainbow. 93 times 18. So we say 9 times 1, we get 9, we leave 1 space. 3 times 8 is 24. So remember, we have to carry this one over. 3 times 1 for the rainbow is 3. 9 times 8 is 72. So we have 75 here because we add. So 5 and 7. So now we add our carries. 5 plus 2 is 7. The 4 comes down. And 9 plus 7 is 16. Now remember, I said it's going to be around $18, so I know my decimal pops in the middle. But we have to add that to 93. So 4, 7, 6 plus 3 is 9, and 9 plus 1 is 10. So I know the total bill will be $109.74. So this is a two-step where we do the multiplication, and then we have to add it back in. So the more advanced way takes this as a 2-digit, 93, times a 3-digit, in this case, 118. Now, where'd that come from? An 18% tip, that as a percentage is 8.18. But we're going to add 100% of this to the number we get, right? This is our 18%. And 93 of 93 is 100%. So the total ends up being 118%, which as a decimal is 1.18. But we ignore decimals, and we can use our rainbow technique here as well. So we say first, 1 times 9 is 9. In this case, because we have a 3-digit, we put 2 lines. 8 times 3 is 24. Now the rainbow we do is a little bit different. We do our middle rainbow here, 72. 1 times 3 is 3, so 72 plus 3 is 75. And now we have to do the bottom rainbow. 9 times 1 is 9, 3 times 1 is 3, so we have 12. And so now we simply add our carries. So we have 4, 5 plus 2 is 7, 2 plus 7 is 9, and 9 plus 1 is 10. Now notice this number looks an awful lot like this number, because this 1 is the 93 we were adding. So this is another technique. And this will work with any tip. Anytime you're adding the tip plus the total, or the commission plus the price, whatever it may be, if you put a 1 point, that will be, the answer you get will be the final answer. So for this example, we have $59 briefcase, and it marks up by 35%. In any case, they want to know the amount of the markup, not the total price, but the markup. So in this case, it's 59 times 35. And we'll do the rainbow again. So we do firsts, 5 times 3 is 15. 1 space for a 2 by 2. And lasts, which is 9 times 5, or 45. Now we do our rainbow, 9 times 3, which is 27. And 5 times 5, which is 25. So 25 and 27 is 52, and then we do the carries. So it ends in 5, 2 plus 4 is 6, 5 plus 5 is 10, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So in this case, the markup is about a third of 60, or around 20, so sure enough, 20.65. So we've got a dining room table. In this case, we want to know the marks up by 30%, and they want to know the new price. So we have two methods. We find 30% of this and add it to this, or as we learned, we can do 1.30. So what's nice about this one is we can actually ignore this last 0, and this becomes a 3-digit times a 2-digit. Now I know 30% is about a third, so a third of 600 is 200. 200 plus 600, so I know this is going to be around $800 total, because it's a $600 table plus about a third of 600. So now I have a rough idea of what the answer will be. So we do the rainbow. We say 6 times 1 is 6, 2 spaces, 4 times 3 is 12, carry the 1. Now we do the inside, the top rainbow. We have 4 times 1 is 4, 0 times 3 is 0, so we get a 4 here. Now I'm going to go ahead and add this on and make it a 5. So I've already done my carry there. Now we do the bottom rainbow. 1 times 6, 1 times 0, so we have 1 times 0, which is 0, and then 18. So this is 8, and this becomes a 7. So 7, 8, 5, 2. And again, I knew this is around $800, so my decimal point will be right here. $785.20. And for those who'd like to check, let's go ahead and take 30% of 604. So 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 0 is 0, and 3 times 6 is 18. So 2, 1, 8, 1. Again, we see this about a third is $200, so $181.20 plus 604, 604, 181.20, and we get 20 cents, 587. Sure enough, checks out. So in this one, it's $25.31 and the tax of 3%. So what is the total cost including tax? In this case, you take $25.31. Now here's the little trick I would use. So I know that 1% is 0.2531 because I just moved the decimal 2 places over. And I can add 3 of those together. I I get 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 15, 6, 7. So I get 0.759. That's what I'm adding to this. Here's the total plus the tax. 0.759. So 9, 6. And it says to the nearest cent, so this will round up to 2607. So now we have a 15% tip. And what's the total cost of this breakfast, including tip? Now, if we use our earlier technique and make this 1.15 times this, that's a big number to try and multiply. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 10% and our 5% and our 100%, in this case 63, 62. So 10%, we move this over, that becomes $6.36.02. Now it's to the nearest cent, which is why I'm holding on to this little piece here, because although it rounds down here, it could round up later on. So 5% it means we have to take exactly half of that. Well, this is $3. Half of 36 is 18, and half of 2 is 1. So when I add this, I get 2 plus 1 is 3, so we actually won't be having to round. 10, 16, 9, 10, 11, 9, 10, 13, and carry the 1 for 73, 16. 73, 16. So this is a case where, again, using our 10% and half of that is probably the fastest. We could have multiplied this all out, but that would have taken a little bit of time on our part. All right, we've got a 31% times 612, so we need about a third of that. A third is about, again, about $200. And since we got the new price, we have to add those together, so it's going to be somewhere, again, $800-ish, a little more than that. So I will use the rainbow and say 6 times 3 is 18, 2 spaces, 2 times 1 is 2, and we do a couple of rainbows. 2 times 3 is 6, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 plus 6 is 7. So far, no carries. It's kind of nice. On the bottom, we said 1 times 6, 6, 1 times 3 is 3, and we get 9. So, sure enough, no carries. So, we knew it was about $200 for the tax, or sorry, the markup. So, $189.72 plus $612. So, 2, 7, 9 plus 2 is 11, 8 plus 1 is 10, and 8. Sure enough, it's awfully close to $800 at $801.72.